Hi, this is Lisa Kirschenbauer. I'm joining you to share the third part of our series. I'm here to share the third part of our series, Processing and Navigating the COVID-19 Experience, the New Normal. It's been quite a few months, really 6 months now, since we began this journey together. And as we approach the fall, I thought it would be a good opportunity to share some thoughts and perhaps give you some things to think about as we navigate this new season and the continuing experience that we're going through. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to review some of what we've talked about in the other two programs, and then I'm going to go ahead and maybe share some new ideas and some new questions for you to consider. So let's begin from here. So in the first couple of sessions that we had together, we talked about the experience of going through a pandemic, the stages of grief, and we're going to revisit some of that because I think as people enter the fall period and thought perhaps that things were going to change and have now realized that we're not out of this yet, however you look at it. Some of us are going to be re-experiencing what we felt back perhaps in March or in April. One of the slides and concepts that we had shared back in our newsletter and then also in our earlier webinars was this question of who do I choose to be during the COVID-19 experience? And I think for a lot of us, we thought by this point in time, as we approach the fall, that it would all be over and behind us. And yet, I think we're still in it for many of us. If you recall, we talked a little bit about that fear zone, starting in the fear zone, which hopefully we're past at this point, at least around toilet paper and maybe hand sanitizer and things like that. There's certainly some new shortages out there. I think many of us have been struggling a little bit with postal deliveries. Hopefully that's a whole different experience we're going through. During the learning zone, I think many of us struggled with how to cope with the uncertainty, the loneliness in some cases, and at the same time, I know from some of our team members at Omega, it was an opportunity to learn, to maybe choose a different diet or a new exercise routine, to develop new routines for that matter. And hopefully you picked up some new things along the way. And now we really get to that growth zone. And I think we're going to be in this growth zone for a while. How do we live for now without knowing what's next? And, you know, is there a way that I can help others and I can support others? And rather than looking forward to when we get to whatever is next, really realizing this is our life right now. And hopefully if you can find a way to get there, being appreciative and being grateful. One of the things that we do know from a lot of studies is that our ability to shift from being in a place of feeling victimized or, you know, maybe down on how things are going, to a place where we can be appreciative for whatever is in front of us, whether it's the sound of birds or the wildlife in your backyard, or perhaps having more time to connect with people that you care about, or perhaps the opportunity to take better care of yourself. Our ability to be appreciative and grateful for all of that really helps us move into that growth zone. Just as a reminder, in the past, we've talked about these 4 stages of a pandemic transition. And funny enough, I can remember thinking back when we started this webinar series to, oh gosh, we're moving through that ending so quickly. Perhaps it's not going to be a year. And now in retrospect, the idea that we're going to be waiting for a vaccine, maybe there's some treatments out there. And, you know, I think there's still some concern as we hit the flu season that we will also have a second wave, although I think, to be fair, we're still going through the first wave in the United States, whereas maybe other countries may start to experience a second wave. The reality is, though, that we're still in the ending period. And what's ahead of us are two other stages before we even get to the new normal, and that is passage. And that's going to be a time, and perhaps you're going to start to experience that as we move into the new year, even this fall, making adjustments, adapting, deciding that certain things aren't as important to you, reprioritizing what you're going to do when you can, or what you do now. And I think many of us are starting to think about that. Certainly here at Omega, we're going to be starting to come back into the office some days, but not all together. Some of us are going to still be working from home all of the time. And so it really isn't the new normal. And we won't be seeing clients here at the office, at least for the time being. So we're still in that unknown period of something's going to be different. We don't know exactly how it's going to be different, but it is going to be different. And then there is the new normal. And, that's probably going to take us a couple of years to get to, where we have new routines. Maybe we have new priorities. So I keep thinking back to after 9/11, really before September 11th, 2001, when you used to be able to greet family members, friends at the gate when they've arrived at the airport, and how that changed forever after 9/11. And I fully expect that we're going to have similar experiences. Perhaps it's wearing a mask when you travel, or wearing a mask when you're out in public gatherings, or perhaps it's just going to be how you shop, how you work. And when we get there, we'll know it. It'll feel natural, it'll feel normal, and yet we're not quite there yet. One of the things, I'm part of an entrepreneurial coaching program called Strategic Coach. And this exercise perhaps is a little small for you, but we plan to share it with you this fall. Really interesting exercise called the Scary Times Experience Transformer. And it may be for you now that the scary times aren't really about the pandemic. You've come to accept that we're in this period of time where we wear masks and we don't get to connect face to face with each other. Maybe it is seeing what's happening with the uprisings, mainly in cities and in certain areas of the country. Or maybe it's you're scared about the economy, or I know the financial markets look good right now, but perhaps you're looking ahead and unsure about all of that. And so one of the things that we're going to do is to take you through these couple of questions and help you perhaps start to think about what you can get out of this experience. What has changed? What have been the biggest changes? And they could be personally, professionally, they could be spiritually, they could be financially, and really understanding what's important out of that experience. And then the second question being, what stayed the same? So amidst all of the uncertainty and turbulence, what has stayed the same for you, and why that's been important? And perhaps what comes out of that then is this sense of what's the learning, what are we going to bring forward? What are we going to adopt and adapt as we move forward into the fall, into the next year? And what have we realized isn't so important any longer and that we're going to leave behind? And so I encourage you to take the opportunity to think through these questions, and we'll plan on sharing them with you this fall, and perhaps identifying a couple of actions that you can take to feel like you're a little bit more in control, that you're making progress. That's so important, to have that hope that things are getting better, that we can have an impact in a positive way on what's happening around us. Just as a reminder, because I think that as we enter the fall, I know I'm feeling some of it. I'm feeling a little bit of the 6 stages of grief again. And partially it's because I expected this fall that my husband and Jim and I would be empty nesting, that our twin high school sons would be, 18-year-old sons would be moving on to college. only one is going to college, one is taking a gap year and going to explore the country this over this next school year, which will be fun. Definitely not what we planned. And then our older son is working on getting a job, and he's home with us. And so it's going to be a very different experience. And some of the travel that we have planned, of course, all of that has been canceled or rescheduled to next year. And so just, it's not going to be the same experience. When I think about my one son, David, who's going off to college, who's going to be quarantined, I'm a little sad for him that it's not going to be the experience that he planned on or that I hoped for. And the holidays are starting to come into focus, and I already know that those are going to change and not quite be like they might have been prior to the pandemic. So that said, I'm also accepting that I'm wearing my mask and we're having to stay socially distanced, and also finding meaning. What is important? As we come out of this, what am I realizing that I want to prioritize? So it's very possible to move through the 6 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, acceptance, and meaning. You can move back and forth amongst them. I just encourage you to honor wherever you are and to realize that some people that you may love and care about or know, or maybe don't know, but you can see as you watch the news or are on the internet, are in a different place from you. And our ability to offer grace to those who are in a different place, perhaps angry, perhaps in denial that this whole experience is happening. I think the more grace that we can offer, the better we can all navigate through this, and realize that at some point we will all move through these stages, but at different points in time. So what is the new normal? It's going to come out, it's one of those things where you'll know it after you've already arrived. It emerges organically from the foundations and adaptations built during the passage stage that we're going to be moving to soon. When we finally start talking about the pandemic as already happening in the past tense, we'll know that we're in the new normal. Now, I realize some people are already talking about the pandemic in the past tense, but for most of us, we're still experiencing it. People are still losing their lives. And so we're not at the new normal yet. And it will come. It will come. And it's at that point that we're going to be able to look back and to see how things came together, and hopefully some lessons learned and some actions to prevent this from happening again. Often when you get to the new normal, and this will be your cue that you're moving to that stage, maybe you're feeling a little more energized and perhaps a sense of renewal. Also feeling a little more composed, like the ground isn't like quicksand under you. Maybe more open to new opportunities and new ideas, and certainly a sense of appreciation, which you may already be feeling just as part of the normal stages of grief. And lastly, that sense of positivity that we got through this, we've moved forward, hopefully we've learned something from the experience, and we don't have to go through something quite like this ever again. Now, there are some challenges that come when we head to the new normal. I don't know about you, but I'm still missing some of my old routines, and some of those routines are perhaps never going to come back. And as we know, because not everybody moves at the same pace, not everyone is going to be ready for the new normal or ready to see the positives and the opportunities. We're already experiencing that. And we've all heard about post-traumatic stress disorder, something that often people who've had a very awful experience, or perhaps were in the military, or perhaps abused in some way, can experience post-traumatic stress. And you may be feeling some of that. When's the next shoe going to drop? Maybe it's the next financial crisis. Some of us have been waiting for years and years and years since the Great Recession for the next financial crisis, or maybe you're going to be looking around the corner for that next pandemic. Hopefully, what you can also find is something called post-traumatic growth. And that is the ability to go through a very difficult experience, come out on the other end in that new normal from a place of growth and opportunity and learning. So even though it's a little early to be talking about the new normal, I think it's worth contemplating some things that may come up for you. Maybe there won't be a second wave. Maybe the flu season will be lighter than expected. Or maybe there isn't a second wave. And in fact, I think this is what we're experiencing in the United States. Maybe it's just an endemic. In other words, it is going to continue. There's no first and second waves. We're just going to have a continuous first wave. Another thing to think about is travel. Certainly this is something that my husband and I are contemplating. We're going to be driving one of our sons to college in Chicago. Probably we would have driven anyway, but we might have flown. And in the winter, as you know, we like to go skiing in Utah. And I think if we do contemplate that this next winter, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go take a car trip to get there. Certainly social commitments to our church. Our church happens to be St. John's Lafayette Square, that little yellow church right across from the White House. And it's going to be a while before we're going to get to be there at the church. And maybe it's a family or life situation that is going to change. I think the holidays in particular are going to be quite different this year, and it's probably worth thinking about that and preparing for those. Taking the time to find out your why is a great way to try to make the best of this experience. Being curious, exploring what is your life purpose? How can you best help? Where can you best contribute, whether it's at life or work? And also thinking about what if I could do this? What if when things open up? That deeper why is something that we feel is very important at Omega, and we work hard to help you try to find that why, because it really drives so many of the decisions that we make in life, in work, in avocational pursuits, in volunteering. So some things to consider as we wrap up, ideas and actions for processing and benefiting from this unbelievable, unprecedented, as we've said very many times, experience. Take some time. If you haven't already taken some time this summer, I hope you can create some space or downtime, maybe a couple of days, a week, maybe even longer than that, to just be and to think about what you've been through. I had the opportunity recently to be up north in Maine on the coast. It was beautiful, and I did some reading and just enjoyed being there and contemplating where I am and where I want to go. Hopefully you'll take the time. We're happy to walk through with you in our upcoming meetings, the Scary Times Experience Transformer, to really focus in your thinking and learning and what's going to be important to you next. And to talk with the folks that you care about in your life about what your new normal might look like, how they can be part of that, how they can support your new normal. And also please share with us how we can better support you going forward. Perhaps your priorities have changed. Maybe your retirement timeline has changed. We'd really like to talk with you about that. And finally, as I've said before, don't forget to bring some grace to those who aren't as far along in their experience. Perhaps they're struggling again with the 6 stages of grief, and they're really not quite where you are. And also give yourself some grace. As I like to say, be gentle with yourself and realize that this is a day-to-day process. All we can do at times is to put one foot in front of the other. What we're going to be doing, we're going to continue, as you know, to follow the state and local and building health guidelines. We're all going to try to keep ourselves safe, and if we have direct interaction with you, we're going to do our best to keep you safe. We are obviously reopening this fall. At least some of us are coming back into the office, and we appreciated the feedback from those of you to find out what your needs were. And if you need any help with virtual meetings, getting the technology sent, we were able to work with so many of you earlier this year. We really appreciate your understanding. We're in very good shape as far as our office. Each of us have our own office that we can work from. We'll be wearing masks, and we'll be having our team meetings each Monday, actually from home via video conference, just to be safe. And we're all prepared to have to adapt and be flexible. Not surprisingly, we won't be doing any business travel. All conferences have gone online. I expect to see that happening probably into next year, maybe as far as into the spring. So it's probably going to be a while before we're back out on a plane to see you if you're out of the Washington, D.C. area. So I appreciate your understanding. We look forward to seeing you in direct face-to-face as opposed to virtual face-to-face as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your understanding. Good luck in this next phase this fall as we all resume our new pandemic routines, our new COVID-19 routines. Please don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of assistance to you in any way. We appreciate the opportunity to work with you, and we look forward to understanding what your why is, what your new normal is, and how we can incorporate that into our financial planning work with you. Take care and be well.